Hey, what's up again, family, friends, and fellow movie lovers? Jeffrey Michael here, and welcome to a spooky and horrific edition of Jeffrey Michael's Movie Reviews Extravaganza. In this video, I'll be reviewing the movies that were released on October the 19th, 2018. Okay, the first movie that I'll review for you is Halloween. Ooh. Rated R. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Nick Castle, Judy Greer, and Andy Matichak, and was directed by David Gordon Green, who brought you such films like Pineapple Express, The Sitter, Our Brand is Crisis, and last year's Stronger. Now, Halloween is the latest entry in the long-running horror movie franchise Halloween. I mean, come on, who doesn't know Halloween by now? I mean, serial killer Michael Myers, a masked assailant who walks around creepily like and wields his bloody butcher knife, which he stabs and kills his victims with mercilessly. I mean, come on, even if you're not a fan of horror movies, you must know about Halloween, right? Well, if you haven't, don't worry, a brief recap. It all started back in 1978 when the legendary director John Carpenter created a relatively low-budget horror film called Halloween. It was about a masked serial killer named Michael Myers who stalked and killed innocent teenagers on Halloween, including main protagonist Laurie Strode, played by the great Jamie Lee Curtis. It was so successful at the box office on a low budget, they thought, we gotta make more of these, you guys. And so, in 1981 came Halloween 2. It was not great, but it was still a good one, I thought. And then came a bevy of, terrible sequels. Halloween's 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'll just pretend those didn't happen. And then came Halloween H2O in 1998, which pretended that most of the sequels didn't happen. It was the original, and then the sequel, and then this film, continuity-wise. And that was alright. And then came Halloween Resurrection. That was actually the first Halloween movie that I saw. And it was a great comedy. And we'll pretend that one didn't happen either, okay? And then came the Rob Zombie 2007 remake. Again, I think he missed the whole point of the spirit of the original, and it wasn't that great either. And of course, he made a sequel in 2009, and that was even worse. And for a while, there were no Halloween movies for a while, until this latest iteration, 2018's new Halloween. What's interesting about this new Halloween one is that it pretends that none of the sequels happened. So it's the 1978 original, and then this movie, continuity-wise. Got it? Okay. So this newest Halloween movie kind of retcons the original a little bit, because in the 1978 original, Michael Myers got away in the end. But this new version says that he actually got captured that same night after he went on a killing spree that killed 5 innocent people and left lone survivor Laurie Strode suffering severe PTSD. And so he's sent away to a rehabilitation hospital, and he's been locked up there for the last 40 years. Ooh. And he hasn't spoken once in all those 40 years. And they think that he's going to stay there for the rest of his life. But being a new Halloween movie's come out, I don't think he's going to stay there much longer, right? And in all those 40 years, Laurie Strode, once again reprising her role, Jamie Lee Curtis, has been preparing herself. She fully expects Michael Myers to come back any day now, even though 40 years have gone by. So in that time, she's been training herself, with knives and especially guns. And she got a shack out in the middle of the woods, and she's reinforced with a lot of booby traps. And she's been trying to train her daughter, Karen, played by Judy Greer in an adult role. And she's gone through 2 failed marriages. She turned to alcoholism, and she's just basically a mess. And she's strained by her family because her daughter had to be taken away from her because she wasn't a fit mother. And so she's grown up, her daughter, and had her own daughter, Allison, played by Andy Matichak. And because, when you have a Halloween movie, you've got to have the cliche white girl teenager role, right? I mean, it's impossible, right? And so meanwhile, Laurie's trying to protect her family, and you hear about on the news, we hear about a bus from a psychiatric hospital that's been run over on the side, and a bunch of passengers escaped. And it doesn't take 2 brain cells from you to realize that, yeah, Michael Myers is probably on that bus and has now escaped. And so this is the day that Lori's always feared. She tries to tell her friend, we gotta do something. We gotta get to my house. Mom, please. The authorities will handle this. You've saw this way too long. You gotta get over this now. And she just can't. And meanwhile, Allison, her daughter, is trying to enjoy a school dance on Halloween. And she has a friend who's babysitting, and she has her boyfriend, and they want to have sex, just like the regular Halloween teenagers. And of course, Michael Myers returns, in his traditional costume, and he got his mask back, and he's got his knife, and he's stalking through Haddonfield, Illinois, finding victim after victim. And Lori's trying to get her family together, and Allison's on her own, and she's trying to get to her daughter Karen, and trying to get them all together so they can all get to that house, and they can finally all together take on Michael Myers once and for all, and end this for once. And that's pretty much the brunt of the story. Can they stop him once and for all? And since it's a franchise, I'm not sure about that. Overall, I thought this was a great iteration of Halloween, you guys. Halloween, this is one franchise I thought that, aside from the original and maybe the direct sequel from 1981, the rest of them pretty much been mediocre or just plain terrible. These are a franchise where most of the movies are just not good at all. So I was pleasantly surprised that this new 2018 Halloween movie actually is probably one of the best ever made. In fact, I think I would put it right behind the original. Although some of you might like the sequel more. So let's just say the original Halloween 2, and this new Halloween, the top 3. I think we can all agree on that, right? Top 3 Halloweens. And here's why. Because this movie did such a good job of capturing what made the original so great. Michael Myers being the predominantly scary guy who's always stalking down the alleyways, and the camera follows him, and it shows, what his point of view at one point. It shows like the shot from outside the window, and you see him getting into the house and killing them, and it's like so well shot. That's exactly like how the original was shot. So the same camera angles and same kind of atmosphere that's built up, and tension and suspense. You don't know where he's going to show up next and pop out like the boogeyman that he is. And also the acting. Jamie Lee Curtis once again brings Laurie Strode to life. And she does a great job showing a grandma who's, PTSD bound and, trying all of her might just to end this horror once and for all this time, after all this time. And, I got some goosebumps at times, and I've seen every horror movie imaginable, and I don't scare easily, so that's a plus in my book. And, it's also, it manages to take itself pretty seriously, because a lot of Halloween movies can easily go into comedy territory, like Halloween Resurrection. And this movie, I didn't think it was, unintentionally, horrific. So, yeah, overall, this was a great, pretty scary horror Halloween movie. And for my grade for it, I think I would give it a B+. Yep, this is probably my second favorite Halloween after the original. And would I recommend that you all go see it? Sure, go ahead and go see it. You have a fun time at the movies, and yeah, and if you love the original, then you will love this one too, I think. So go and see it. If you're a horror movie fan, maybe not, but it's still a good movie to see on Halloween. So yeah, if you want to have a spooky time, see it. Moving on. So the next film that I'll review for you is The Hate U Give, rated PG-13. It stars Amandla Stenberg, Russell Hornsby, Regina Hall, and Algie Smith, and was directed by George Tillman Jr., who brought you such films like Men of Honor, Notorious, and The Longest Ride. Now, The Hate U Give is based on a young adult novel by Angie Thomas. Our main character is Star, with 2 R's, played by Amandla Stenberg. She's a 16-year-old black teenage girl, and her parents are played by Russell Hornsby and Regina Hall, and she also has a half-older brother and a younger full brother, and they all live in the mostly poor black neighborhood of Garden Heights. Unfortunately, because it is a poor neighborhood and it's also predominantly black, it's also got drugs and gangs and gun violence. It's not a very safe place to live, but they still call it home, though. And her mother wants her kids to have a good education, so she sends them to an affluent, mostly white prep school. And it's there that we realize that Star's been living a double life. when she's at home in her black neighborhood, she's allowed to allows herself to be gangsta, ghetto. And when she's at her white prep school, she doesn't want the white kids there like have their own version of what it's like to be black, and so she doesn't want to give them to poke fun at her. So she tries to be as white as possible, Star 2.0, she says. And as a result, she's always wondering, like, who am I? Who is Star? And she doesn't feel like she fits like in this world, even though she's getting a good education. She's good in her at school. And so one day she goes to a party and she runs into an old childhood friend, Khalil, played by Algie Smith, a very attractive black boy. And so he's driving her home from the party, and they're pulled over by the police because of a situation where he didn't put his blinker on when he changed lanes. Stupid, really. And, Star's been taught all her life, like most black kids, by her parents, that when the police pull you over, do everything they say, do not raise your voice, do not talk back to them, put your hands where they can see them, and just do everything they say until it's all over. And Star knows that. Unfortunately, though, Khalil is asked to step out of the car when he doesn't comply, saying, "What the hell did I do? I didn't do anything." Khalil, shut up, just keep your hands, be quiet, just do what he says. And, he's pulled out of the car, and the policeman goes to get something from his car, and so, Khalil's got his hands on the car. And she's like, just do what he says. Come on, just stop it, Khalil. No, it's okay. He reaches into the car to grab something. It's a hairbrush. And the police sees him grabbing for it. He thinks it's a gun. Shoots him. Bang, 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 bang. Oh, no! 3 bullets go into him, and Star is left traumatized. Why did you do? I mean, if you haven't figured out by now, this is a story that's pretty much ripped from the modern headlines. I mean, whether it's Ferguson or the black guy who was strangled, or Trayvon Martin, all those unarmed innocent black men who have been killed by the police. And this is yet another version of it. So Khalil, of course, doesn't make it. And Star is traumatized. The whole neighborhood, turns out for his funeral. And it makes the news, the national news. And Star is the only witness. And they want her to come forward and, give testimony and what happened, what the cop did. Here's the problem, though, because, it's national news. So if she, no one knows that she was there. So she makes herself known that she was the person there. Then everyone's going to know about it, or white school. And then they'll know that she's involved, and also, it'll mix national news, so then everyone's going to now hound her, online, or, harass her. And also, this is the big one, her father used to be in a drug gang, went to jail for it, and he got out of that gang, but then the crime lord, Khalil, apparently was involved in selling some drugs to help out his sick grandmother. He didn't have any money, and so she has to implement, that Khalil was involved with his drugs, and that'll implement the drug lord, the king. And so that could put her family in danger. So she's wondering, what should I do here? And, they're, whether she's going to become a witness and, confess to everyone, and, whether her family's going to be in danger. And then there's also black riots, happen all over the city, a la Ferguson. And yeah, the rest of the movie, it ends on it tries to explain the whole tension that still goes on, today with black people in America. And all the problems and all the racial insensitivity. And yeah, it's a good overall themed movie. So as for my review, I actually like this movie a lot. I mean, this is the kind of movie where, because it deals with an issue that's, still present, and it really wants to get its point across, it could easily go very preachy. But I liked how the movie, it does go preachy, but then it knows when to hold itself back and keep itself grounded, in reality. And I thought, wow, that was a good job, movie. They know when to keep their characters real and not get too overly, preaching to the choir in church. This is what's wrong with America. The police, F the police. And as for the acting, oh my God, Amandla Stenberg is proving once again that she is a star that's about to be born, even though she plays a character called Star. I mean, she manages to capture this teenage girl who's going through a tough period in her life. She's having a problem with identity, both in her life and in her school, and, trying to make a difference in the world, but she also wants to be safe, and, it's out of emotions, and she's not sure how to even, even when she's a simple scene where she's trying to introduce her white boyfriend, Chris, to her family, it's still she's so awkwardness of what teenagers go through. I mean, she captures all that perfectly. The awkwardness, the scaredy jitters of being a teen, especially when you're thrust and forced to be an adult very early on. And the acting from all the other actors, I mean, I think everyone did a great job in their parts. And the movie overall tries to show a great message of how we still have much ways to go, to combat, racial insensitivity and horrible ways that black people are still treated by, police and, majority, like the white people. And it's kind of sad because, this is a story that, well, tries to show you all this, and then you realize this probably isn't going to change, but they still are going to try and keep fighting. That's the whole spirit of the movie, keep on fighting, even when you think that the battle is not going to be won. And overall, for my grade, I give this one an A minus. I thought it was a near perfect film that, it's great acting, it shows a great message, and, it keeps itself grounded and not going too preachy, and, would I recommend you all see it? Yeah, it's a good movie. That's in a age where young adult novels are made into these lame movies like The Fifth Wave, or like that recent one that I just reviewed, The Darkest Minds, which also starred Mandela Stenberg. This is actually a good young adult movie adaptation, for a change. So yeah, go and see it if you want to, and yeah, moving on. The next film that I'll review for you is mid-90s, rated R. It stars Sonny Soljic, Lucas Hedges, and Catherine Waterston, and was the directorial debut of Jonah Hill. You all know Jonah Hill, right? From movies like Superbad and 21 Jump Street. He's a director now too, can you believe that? So mid-90s, as you might have guessed, is set in the mid-90s. In a bad neighborhood in Los Angeles. Our main protagonist is 13-year-old Stevie, played by Sonny Soljic. He lives with his older brother Ian, played by Lucas Hedges, who beats him up regularly, leaves bruises on his body. And he also lives with his single mother, Dabney, played by Catherine Waterston, who's not around very often because she works a lot to support both of them. And so, feeling out of place, because he can't feel well at home with his older brother, Stevie goes on his bike a lot, and one day he goes past a skateboard shop, and he sees a group of kids hanging out and skateboarding, and he's in awe of them. It's like, wow, can I hang out with them? And so eventually he manages to talk to their youngest member, Ruben, and Ruben then introduces him to the rest of the skateboard gang. There's Ray, their leader, and fuck shit, pardon my French, that's his actual nickname. And the other member is Fourth Grade, that's his nickname too. And they decide, yeah, you can hang with us, and if you can get a board. And so by bribing his older brother, he's able to get himself a skateboard, and also by stealing money from his mom to pay for it. And they also give him the nickname Sunburn. And if you watch the movie, you'll understand why. So Sunburn hangs out with his new friends. They go skateboarding, and they go in places where they're not allowed. And they introduce him to smoking and drinking and drugs and even some underage foreplay with some girls. Ooh. And throughout the movie, these characters come off one-dimensional, like those stereotypical skateboarders who just want to hang out and smoke and drugs and do nothing else but hang and have fun. And that seems that way for a while. But then as the movie goes on, they start to talk, and we start to see what their innermost, desires and dreams are. And you realize, wow, these kids are actually three-dimensional, and they actually have, under this facade that they, put up, these skateboarder guys just don't care and have fun. They actually have dreams that they actually want to aspire to, whether they're pipe dreams or actual believable dreams. And you start to see the humanity behind them, despite all the illicit behavior they're involved in. They get Stevie, or Sunburn, involved in. And all the while, his mother is not comfortable with all these friends he's hanging out with. I don't think you should be hanging out with these guys, Stevie. And at one point, she confronts them. You leave my boy alone. Do not get him involved with these drugs and stuff. And it all comes to a head when a horrific thing happens toward the end of the movie. I'm not going to reveal what happens, but it brings everyone, together in full circle. And yeah, that's pretty much the movie. And overall, I thought this was a really great movie. If I had to compare it to another movie, I would think I would pick Larry Clark's infamous 1995 movie Kids. And if you haven't seen Kids, it's a controversial movie because it stars underage, teenagers who get involved. They live in a bad part of a city, so they get involved in drugs and drinking and underage sex. And a lot of people thought that was very controversial, but the more cinephiles believe that's actually a very most realistic take of teenagers in a movie ever. And this movie, is pretty similar in that, it shows a part of kids growing up in a bad neighborhood and getting involved in illicit behavior because that's what they're exposed to. I mean, to not do so would be unrealistic, right? And so, This also is a boy who grows up in a bad neighborhood in Los Angeles and gets involved with, illicit behavior because that's what's, he's exposed to. I mean, and it does a good job, I thought, movie of being as real as possible and showing these characters are one-dimensional as also three-dimensional. And also the way that it was shot. Jonah Hill decided to use a small lens, so it's not a wide screen. It's actually a small screen movie. And it's shot in a way where it feels like a documentary or a home video, like that was shot in the mid-90s. So for a while, you don't know if you're watching, actors in a movie or a home movie that was filmed back in 1985 is now being shown in theaters. Crazy, right? And also the way that he got actual professional skateboarders to play the part of the gang instead of they're not real actors. And they actually did a great job, I thought, because they fooled me. They did a good job showing their characters. And the acting, too, is great from little Sonny Soljic, who is the main character, who has to carry this movie on his shoulders because he's in every scene. And his older brother, E, played by Lucas Hedges, also does a great job as the brother who, you find out that he's actually really lonely. That's why he beats on his brother. And it's wonderfully directed, too, by Jonah Hill, and great acting from the mom, and great, very realistic movie. My one quibble, though, is that the resolution and the ending are pretty abrupt. Like, all of a sudden, it's over, and that's it? I would have liked a little bit more time at the end, but minor stuff, because I still thought it was, again, a near-perfect movie that's very reminiscent of an old Larry Clark movie that was shot in a way that feels like a home video documentary and features such great, characters that you could actually believe lived in the mid-90s at the time in Los Angeles. Would I recommend that you all go see it? Sure. For my grade, I give it an A-. So definitely for his very first film, Jonah Hill did a great job. And, if he wants to make more movies, I applaud. Go for it, dude, because if they're as good as this one, then you've got a good future in directing as well, just like Bradley Cooper did with A Star is Born. So yeah, this is a movie I definitely would recommend. Go and see it, and hopefully you won't come out, giving yourself a nickname like fuck shit. Hopefully not. Moving on. All right, the last film from October the 19th that I will review for you is Can You Ever Forgive Me? Rated R. It stars Melissa McCarthy and Richard E. Grant and was directed by Marielle Heller, who brought you the film Diary of a Teenage Girl. Now, Can You Ever Forgive Me is based on the memoir of the same name by Lee Israel. As you might have guessed, it's based on a true story. Memoir. The movie is set in New York in the early 90s, and we're introduced to our real-life author, Lee Israel, played by Melissa McCarthy. And when you first meet her, it's like, whoa, because she dresses frumpy and her haircut looks like a dead ferret is sitting on her head. And we find out that she was once a celebrated author of many successful biographies in the 70s and 80s. But no one will buy she hasn't written a book in a while because no one will buy from her anymore. Her writing style is outdated, and she tries to get an advance from her agent on her new biography about Fanny Bryce. And her agent tells her, I'm sorry, I can't give you that money. Why not? I'm broke. I need money. No one wants to buy from you anymore, all right? Your writing style is outdated. You don't even play the game. When you go to these cocktail parties that I send you to, you don't mingle with the other agents or authors. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, that's how you play the game, sweetheart. And if you don't want to read about Fanny Bryce either, if you really want something, you've got to play the game. And you find out that Lee Israel is a very complicated woman. She tries to connect, but she really hates a lot of people. And she also lives a sad life because now that she's broke, she lives in a sad, broken-down apartment. She's behind on her rent, and her only friend, her cat, sad, is also sick. And so she really doesn't know what to do with herself. And one day she happens to come across an old letter that was written by Fanny Bryce, actually typed by Fanny Bryce. And, old letters from celebrities are worth a lot of money. So she takes it to a book person. Hey, can I get any money for this? Because she really needs money badly. Well, I could give you some, but I could give you more, but the content here is not very rich. Then she thinks, So she takes it back to her apartment and wonders, And so then she takes the letter and she starts typing in extra PS to it, more interesting content. And then she takes a pen and then carefully forges the signature of that celebrity Fanny And then she takes it back to the woman. Wow, this letter is much more crazy. This has much more great content. I'll give you a couple hundred. It's great. It's how I take it. So she takes the cash and she's able to pay back her apartment rent. And she realizes, wow, I could keep doing this. And so all the while, she reconnects with an old friend, a gay man named Jack, played by Richard E. Grant. And it's one of those love-hate friendships because, they like each other, they also hate each other. And it goes throughout the movie that keeps happening, it goes like that. And she eventually, looks at other authors like Noah Coward, and Katharine Hepburn, and all these other famous writers and playwrights and celebrities. And she's gets out typewriters and tries to copy the same writing style that they would have typed on, and also forges the signature. And she goes to each these book dealers and bookkeepers and bookstore owners, and they keep looking, wow, this is great. They actually wrote this. I'll give you a couple hundred. I'll give you this. I'll give you 500, 400 each. And all of a sudden she's raking in the money, as you will. And at one point she involves Jack helping her out, and doing her little schemes here. And it seems all good for a while until you realize that when you're involved in illicit behavior, sooner or later it's going to catch up to you. And it does, and it does, and it did. Because sooner or later, the FBI agents are coming around, and she's getting questions. No, I don't know anything. I mean, I found those. And at one point, she has Jack, go and deliver the letters to these people so they don't suspect her. And she also ends up on the FBI wanted list. And it comes to a head where she has to destroy all the evidence. And they tell her don't destroy any evidence, and she does, of course. And she's in. It all comes to a head where she's indicted, and And the rest of the story, if you know the true story, it does not end well for her, but she doesn't really have any regrets, she says. Overall, I thought this was a great movie to watch. I mean, first of all, I got to talk about Melissa McCarthy. I mean, we all know her by now. She's been in every, slapstick comedy from Bridesmaids to Spy to The Heat. And she always plays that that woman who's always over the top, obnoxious, and falls down a lot. But I gotta say, this movie really showcased her actual great acting abilities because she really played against type this time. She played a woman, she held back her usual manic energy, and she showed that her comedic side through a more squirrely way, and she shows how, a sad part of her acting. And I think this was a career-defining performance for her because she really showed people this time, I'm just a one-dimensional comedian. I can actually act my ass off when I can, and she does. I mean, she shows Lee Israel as this woman who, has just been sad most of her life. She tries so hard to connect, and she just hates everyone, so it's really hard. How do you connect when you just hate everybody? I mean, that's pretty much who Lee Israel was, She's just sad and wants to have a relationship with this woman bookkeeper that she meets, but she can't hold it down, and she asks her ex, dude, I make you happy? I can't be there to help you all the time. You got to let me go. And, even at one point, her friendship with Jack becomes strained, too, when he turns on her and turns her over. And, she's just this woman that, she's sad and just wants so badly to matter, to be a great writer, to be recognized as one. And especially telling at the very end of the movie when she says, I don't regret anything I did with my forgeries because that was the time my period was probably one of the happiest and most matterful moment in my life. And you realize, wow. When illicit behavior is the best time of your life, then I kind of pity you. And, the acting is great from her and also from Richard E. Grant is equally good as Jack, her gay friend who is fabulous, darling, and also trades barbs and insults at her and everybody. And, just one bad thing after another. And, it's a great movie overall that shows you that, it's important to try to connect and just, be good with people and just try really hard and not be so, push people away and, try to just live a good life and don't worry about being so great, Unfortunately, it's based on a true story, so it's not a great happy ending, but overall, I thought it was a great movie, and for my grade, I give it an A-. Yep, a near perfect film. And would I recommend you all go see it? Definitely. For Melissa McCarthy alone, is worthy enough to see this movie because she shows once and for all, yes, I'm not just a comedian, I am an actor, actress. And I think you would all have a great time, and it's a really well done movie. And go and see it, please. I recommend it. Moving on. Michael Myers and the recap are coming for you. Recap, everyone. Halloween, B+, spooky, suspenseful, and wonderful return to form for Michael Myers and the Halloween franchise in general. It's probably the best Halloween movie since the original. I recommend you all go see it, especially if you're a horror fan. The Hate You Give, A-, well-acted film that does a great job addressing the topical issue of police brutality against black people without being too preachy. I recommend this one to everyone. Mid-90s, A-, an auspicious directorial debut by Jonah Hill that's well-acted, well-shot, and tells a realistic story about teenagers growing up in Los Angeles in the mid-90s. I also recommend this one to everyone. And finally, Can You Ever Forgive Me? A-, a beautifully written true story about a sad, down-in-her-luck author that's elevated by Melissa McCarthy's best performance in years. I recommend this film to everyone as well. How about that? All 4 films in this video I recommend to everybody. That almost never happens. And that'll do it for a spooky edition of Jeffrey Michaels Movie Reviews Extravaganza. Until next time, happy movie watching, everybody! And watch out for Michael Myers.